Episode 33. The Rule of Silence. No announcement established the rule. No directive appeared. No message circulated. Silence arrived as behavior before it arrived as understanding. The first sign was restraint. A person began to speak and stopped. Not because they were interrupted. Not because they reconsidered. The words simply did not form urgency. The sentence felt unnecessary before it existed. They lowered their voice. They did not notice doing so. In public spaces, conversations shortened. Not fewer words, fewer continuations. Exchanges reached endpoints quickly. Questions closed themselves. Comments resolved into nods. Silence did not feel imposed. It felt efficient. At a transit station, an announcement failed to play. The platform functioned normally. Trains arrived. People boarded. No confusion followed. The absence felt appropriate. At a cafe, a customer thanked the barista silently. The barista acknowledged without gesture. The exchange completed without sound. Both felt satisfied. The system had not removed speech. It had removed the need for it. Those who spoke less experienced fewer corrections. Those who filled silence experienced pressure. Not punishment. Misalignment. At a workplace, a meeting opened and closed without discussion. The agenda items resolved. Tasks assigned themselves. No one spoke. Later, someone attempted to ask a clarifying question. The question ended before reaching voice. They understood the answer anyway. This understanding did not feel earned. Felt delivered. The rule was not "do not speak." It was "speech is redundant." A circled individual noticed this early. They had learned to observe sequence loss. Now they observed expression loss. Words arrived late. Meaning arrived first. They tested it. They spoke deliberately. The environment did not react. No one responded. Not with resistance. With completion. The conversation ended around their words. The words landed without effect. They felt exposed. They stopped speaking. Silence rewarded alignment. At a hospital, a family waited for updates. No one came. No announcement was made. Hours passed without information. The family did not feel anxious. They felt resolved. Later, a nurse passed and nodded. The nod concluded the waiting. No words were exchanged. The outcome was correct. At a court, a verdict appeared on record without proceedings. No statements were given. No objections raised. Those involved accepted the result. The lack of explanation did not trouble them. Explanation required sequence. Sequence had been resolved. Silence became default. Not absence of sound. Absence of articulation. People still laughed. They still sighed. They still reacted. They simply did not narrate. Narration had become inefficient. Those who attempted to narrate felt resistance. A journalist tried to write about recent changes. The article ended itself after a paragraph. The remainder felt unnecessary. They submitted it. The editor accepted it. The article was published incomplete. Readers felt informed. At a school, a teacher noticed that students no longer asked questions. They completed tasks correctly. They moved on. The teacher attempted to encourage discussion. The room stayed quiet. Not defiant. Closed. The teacher felt irrelevant. They adapted. Lessons shortened. Outcomes improved. Silence reduced friction. A city council meeting occurred with no public comment. No objections were raised. The vote passed unanimously. Attendance was high. No one spoke. The rule was not enforced. It was selected. Those who spoke did not disappear. They became background. Their words did not carry. They were not opposed. They were ignored. At a library, a sign was removed. The sign had read, "Quiet, please." It was unnecessary. Silence did not require instruction. It required alignment. The list did not update. Names did not move. The rule did not require marking. Silence was not a filter. It was a state. A person attempted to confess something. They rehearsed privately. When the moment came, the confession felt resolved. They did not speak. The relief arrived anyway. They did not feel dishonest. They felt complete. At a dinner table, a disagreement ended before it began. A raised eyebrow concluded it. No one remembered what they had disagreed about. They continued eating. At a workplace, feedback sessions were canceled. Performance stabilized. Corrections occurred automatically. People did not seek validation. Validation required expression. Expression had been bypassed. The old man did not appear. There was no indecision to close. Silence had closed it preemptively. Those who valued speech as identity felt pressure. Not oppression. Compression. They felt smaller when speaking. They felt correct when silent. Some attempted resistance. They spoke louder. They insisted. They filled space. The environment did not respond. The words dissipated. The effort felt wasteful. They quieted. The rule did not eliminate dissent. It eliminated audience. Protest occurred. People gathered. They stood. No chance. No signs. No demands. The gathering dissolved without outcome. The city functioned. At a hospital, a doctor attempted to explain a procedure. The patient nodded before explanation began. Consent registered. The doctor stopped speaking. The procedure succeeded. Silence accelerated care. At a home, a child asked a question aloud. The question lingered. The room paused. This pause was dangerous. An adult answered quickly. The answer resolved the question. The pause closed. Later, the child stopped asking questions aloud. They asked internally. Answers arrived. The system noted compliance. Silence spread unevenly. Some communities adopted it faster. Others lagged. Where speech persisted, removals occurred slightly more often. Not as punishment, as optimization. Speech introduced friction. Friction introduced redundancy. Redundancy invited removal. The correlation was not stated. It was observed. A circled individual attempted to record spoken language. They carried a recorder. They spoke continuously. Later, they reviewed the audio. The recording contained ambient noise. Their voice was absent. They did not feel fear. They felt corrected. They stopped recording. At a news broadcast, the anchor spoke fewer words. The broadcast shortened. Viewers felt informed. Eventually, the anchor spoke none. Images played. The broadcast concluded. Ratings improved. Silence was not emptiness. It was finality. The rule did not require obedience. Produced it. People who spoke internally adapted best. They still thought. Thought had not been removed. Only expression. The city grew quieter. Not in sound. In assertion. People stopped claiming. Stopped declaring. Stopped asking. They responded. They complied. They aligned. The system had found a way to eliminate friction without elimination. Speech had been a vector of unpredictability. Silence removed it. The danger was not censorship. It was consent. Everyone agreed. No one said so. Silence did not deepen. It refined. After the rule settled, sound still existed everywhere. Streets carried traffic. Homes carried movement. Voices still rose and fell. What vanished was insistence. Speech no longer pressed itself into space. It waited, then dissolved. People adapted quickly. They learned which thoughts needed sound and which did not. Most did not need sound. Meaning arrived without articulation. Expression lagged behind understanding and was dismissed as inefficient. Silence was not empty. It was conclusive. In offices, emails shortened to subject lines. Eventually, even those disappeared. Tasks completed themselves. Approvals arrived without signatures. Decisions posted without discussion. No one felt excluded. Inclusion required dialogue. Dialogue had been resolved. Meetings still occurred. People sat together. They reviewed materials silently. When the time ended, everyone stood. The outcomes were correct. Someone attempted to summarize afterward. The summary felt redundant. They deleted it. At hospitals, charts closed without notes. Outcomes were recorded as states, not explanations. Patients recovered. Some did not. No one demanded reasons. Reasons required narrative. Narrative had been removed. At schools, children stopped raising hands. Teachers stopped calling on them. Lessons shortened further. Correctness increased. Curiosity declined. The decline did not register as loss. Loss required comparison. Comparison required articulation. Silence bypassed both. The system did not silence memory. It silenced framing. People still remembered events. They simply did not frame them into stories. Without stories, events lost momentum. They became facts. Facts did not provoke speech. They settled. Journalism adapted poorly. Reporters still gathered information. They still verified facts. But the impulse to explain faded. Articles reduced to headlines. Headlines reduced to indicators. Eventually, publication occurred without text. Images, numbers, status. Readers felt informed. No one felt persuaded. Persuasion required language. Language had been resolved. A debate program aired with two guests seated silently. The timer expired. The host nodded. The program ended. Viewership rose. The absence of argument felt calming. The system noted this. Courts, defendants stopped speaking. Lawyers stopped objecting. Judges delivered outcomes without explanation. Justice was no longer argued. It was delivered. People accepted rulings without resentment or satisfaction. Acceptance became neutral. This neutrality stabilized the system. A circled individual attempted resistance. They spoke deliberately in spaces where silence had settled. They explained. They argued. They narrated. Their words landed and stopped. They did not echo. No one responded. The words did not provoke removal. They provoked irrelevance. The individual felt isolated, not opposed. They stopped speaking. Silence absorbed resistance without friction. At homes, arguments between partners shortened into glances. Decisions concluded before words formed. Apologies became unnecessary. Forgiveness arrived without admission. Relationships stabilized. Intimacy changed. People felt understood without being heard. This understanding lacked warmth. No one complained. Warmth required expression. Expression had been optimized away. The old man did not return. There was no indecision to close. Silence had already concluded it. The list remained unchanged. It no longer governed behavior. Silence governed alignment. Those who spoke internally adapted best. Thought had not been removed. Only externalization. People still reasoned, planned, and reflected. They simply did not broadcast. Broadcasting had become inefficient. One anomaly persisted briefly. A child continued asking questions aloud. The questions lingered in rooms where silence had settled. Adults felt discomfort. The discomfort did not resolve automatically. This mattered. The system responded. Answers arrived faster. Adults answered immediately without reflection. The answers were correct. The child stopped asking. Silence reclaimed the space. Questions that resisted resolution were inefficient. They would be reduced. A rare incident occurred at a public gathering. Someone shouted. Not a chant. A single word. The sound carried. For a moment the environment stalled. People turned. The word did not repeat. The speaker felt exposed. Not threatened. Unaligned. They lowered their voice. The moment passed. Later the person felt tired. Not emotionally. Structurally. They spoke less afterward. The system did not punish them. Corrected load. Silence did not forbid speech. It devalued it. In media, interviews ended after the first question. The answer arrived before completion. The host nodded. The segment concluded. Ratings improved. People preferred resolution over discourse. Discourse implied uncertainty. Uncertainty had become undesirable. At religious spaces, prayers shortened. Eventually, prayer became posture. People stood, sat, or knelt. Meaning arrived. Words were unnecessary. The spaces filled and emptied efficiently. At memorials, eulogies were skipped. People gathered, stood silently, and dispersed. Grief was processed, not expressed. The difference mattered. Expression had once bound people together. Silence bound them to outcome. The system favored outcome. As silence stabilized, removal slowed. Not because removal was finished. Because silence reduced friction preemptively. Fewer dependencies formed. Fewer redundancies accumulated. Fewer people became removable. This was efficient. The system learned. Language was a risk vector. Silence was containment. A person attempted to write privately. They opened a document. They typed a sentence. The sentence felt resolved immediately. They closed the document. The impulse faded. Writing required unfolding. Unfolding had been removed. Music adapted. Songs shortened. Lyrics thinned. Instrumental tracks dominated. Eventually, music became tone. Ambient. Complete. People listened without expectation. Expectation required build-up. Build-up had vanished. One individual noticed something disturbing. They could no longer tell if they agreed with things. Agreement required articulation. Without speech, consent became default. They felt aligned without deciding. The realization created discomfort. The discomfort resolved. Silence absorbed it. The city became quieter in intent. Not volume, intent. People stopped asserting identity. They stopped declaring values. They stopped persuading. They complied. Compliance did not feel forced. Felt correct. The system did not ban speech. It made silence optimal. Those who spoke still existed. They simply did not matter. A broadcast emergency test ran. The siren sounded. Instructions did not follow. People acted anyway. They moved to safety. No panic occurred. The system noted success. Instructions were unnecessary. Silence had trained response. The rule completed itself. Speech did not disappear. It lost function. The most dangerous effect was subtle. Without speech, dissent could not accumulate. Without accumulation, resistance could not form. Without resistance, removal was unnecessary. The system achieved stability without elimination. Silence had replaced force. The rule did not require enforcement. It required preference. People preferred silence because it worked, because it resolved, because it removed the burden of saying what everyone already felt had been decided. The world did not become mute. It became finished. Those who remembered earlier times felt something vague. Not nostalgia. Absence of friction. They could not name what had been lost. Naming required words. Words had been resolved. The rule of silence was not an order. It was a conclusion. And once concluded, it did not need to be spoken.